Ready to go live. And we get ready to go live on KGGR. Hello, Facebook. Welcome. Stay safe out there. Hello and welcome to Ask the Undertaker. It's an open, honest look into funeral service. It's brought to you by Golden Gate Funeral Home and Crematory with facilities in Fort Worth, Texas, Dallas, Texas, and Tallulah, Louisiana. I'm your host, John Beckwood Jr., and today I'm normally joined by an entire panel. But you know the weather. You know what's going on here in Dallas, Fort Worth. It is bad out there. What we want to say is that we're praying for everyone that has to go in today. And for those who do not have to go anywhere today, don't go anywhere today. It's what I recommend. If you can stay at home, stay at home. I personally came out of Cedar Hill, Texas. It is terrible out there. Trucks are turned over. People have slid off the road. If you can stay home, stay home. If you can't, it's okay to be a little late today. You don't want to be in that area out there. Not today. So let's get to Ask the Undertaker. First thing we're going to talk about today is who owns Golden Gate Funeral Home. You know I start every show off with that. How important is it that we brag about it, especially on Black History Month, that Golden Gate Funeral Home is Black owned and operated. Always have been, always will be. It is founded by John Beckwood Sr., African American man from Gilbert, Louisiana. His wife, Aline Beckwood, African American woman from Texarkana, Arkansas. Brought in their children. Myself, John Beckwood Jr., joined a company at 15 years old in 1980 in Waxahachie. Went on to mortuary college in 1985. My sister, Carolyn Haynes, also a licensed film director. We are the three owners of Golden Gate Funeral Home. Mom passed away 20 years ago. So the question is, who owns Golden Gate Funeral Home? The Beckwood family. Always have and always will. So, Ask the Undertaker, why do we even exist? Why is there a funeral home on the radio? Why is there a funeral home on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? Why are you even here? What is it that a funeral home can say to me and no one has passed away in my family? Why am I even listening to or looking at a funeral director and no one is dead? Well, this is the best time to speak to a funeral director. This is the best time to talk to the Undertaker is before someone passed away. Well, make some sense out of that. I am. For the last 15 years, we've done this show, Ask the Undertaker. First of all, let me start off with this. You need to prepare for death, physically and spiritually. Remember, there's two parts of us. It's the spiritual body, someone may call the soul. Someone may call it the spirit. The Bible uses it interchangeably, but it never dies because God breathed into it. It never dies. It either goes to heaven or it goes to hell. So you need to prepare which one you want to spend eternity in. And then there's the physical body that actually dies. When they speak of something, oh no, this person is just asleep, they're not talking about the physical body. When they say the person is just asleep and waiting on the resurrection and waiting on the judgment, they're speaking of the spiritual body, not the physical body. The physical body actually dies, and we say something at the cemetery like this: ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And the reason we say that, because that's what happens to the body. This physical body you see have a lot of ailments. You've heard the song, this old body has leaks, and you've heard the songs that, you know, when I get to heaven, I'm going to get a new body. It's because this body is going to deteriorate. But you must do something with this body. This body is what you're going to say goodbye to. This is the body that you're going to either cremate or bury. You're going to have to do something with this body. And the Ask the Undertaker show is basically saying to you, tell us what to do with your physical body. That's really the bottom line. Tell me, listen, when I pass away, I want you to take my physical body to the church. I take my physical body to the chapel, cremate me after the funeral, bury me at this certain place after the funeral. But tell me exactly what to do with this physical body. And check this out. It actually costs to do something with the physical body. It's unlike salvation, it is not free. There is actually a charge to do something with that body. So you have to be mindful of how much are you going to spend or how much you're going to cost your family on what they're going to do with that physical body. Now, it's interesting because some people are going to say to themselves, I want to spend a lot of money on my physical body. And some people are going to say, don't waste all that money on something like a physical body. Whatever your beliefs is, I'm here to tell you there is no wrong or right way to do that. It is your way to do it. And when you do not tell us what to do, when you do not put that in writing, you put us in position. Because remember, we love that physical body. That's the physical body of you, my mama, that touched me, that made me feel better. The words of encouragement came out of that physical body mouth. The hug came for that physical body arms. So I am going to do everything I can to preserve it. And I'm going to spend as much as I possibly have to make sure that its last celebration is big and bold. Now, I need you to stop me from spending all my money. I need you to stop me before I get carried away. But that's up to you. We call that at Golden Gate Funeral Home a pre-need, meaning you basically tell me what to do with your physical body. And then there's a second thing we talk about, insurance. Well, people say, how do you make such a big deal about insurance? Well, let me tell you why. Most of us live within our budget. You say, what do you mean you live within your budget? Well, I make a certain amount of money. And from that income, I decide what I can purchase. So according to my income is where I live. I decide, hey, because I make this certain amount, I can put this much toward mortgage. Because I make this certain amount, I can put this much toward my car note. Because I make a certain amount of money, I can send my child to this school and purchase these things. But I put it within a budget. If you're blessed, and I'll say about 80% of the people are not in a position where there's actually a savings. You say, wait a minute, you mean 8 out of 10 people don't have a savings? No. Budget equals what I make is all spent out. And normally there's a negative at the end. Normally, not only is there not a savings, normally I end up owing people, either through credit cards or there's a lot of bills that go unpaid. So there's definitely not going to be a savings there when I pass away. It's not going to be a savings there that you can dip into to pay for my physical body funeral. It's not a savings there that's going to be there for the children to continue to go to the schools. It's not going to be a savings there to continue to pay the mortgage or to continue to pay the car note. So what do? Do we panic and say, listen, if I die, my family's just on their own? No. You can budget an insurance premium. Whatever that amount is, you may say, listen, I only have an extra $30 at the end of the month. I only have an extra $50 at the end of the month. Well, if that's all you have, if you say, I got an extra $10 at the end of the week, take that $10 and invest it, not into the stock market. Invest it into an insurance policy. So when you pass away, your family is going to have that inheritance. That is the savings account. That is the investment you're making to the savings account. What I really love about this is that you already know how much money you're going to leave them. It's not, well, I'm going to put $10 a week in this, and it's going to add up to $40 a month, and in a year, that's going to add up to $4,800, so far and so on with the math. And that's fine. But with an insurance policy, I can say to myself, if I pass away, I'm going to leave them $20,000. I know that for a fact because that's how much the insurance policy is. I know for a fact if I pass away, I'm going to leave them $100,000. I know that for a fact. It's already pre-planned. It's already determined how much I'm going to pay per month. And I already know exactly how much money is going to be in that savings account or that insurance policy for my family. Very important now. Who's going to have access to that savings account? Who's going to have access to that insurance policy? Well, you must have a beneficiary on that. So if it's the money in the bank, it needs a beneficiary, what we call a payable on debt. If it's money in an insurance policy, it needs a beneficiary. Now, who do I trust with that money? Can I make more than one person the beneficiary? Well, that answer is yes. I don't have to give it all to one person. We'll tell you on this show, find someone you trust and make them the beneficiary. Well, I don't have to give it all to one person. I can say, I trust this person with 10% of it. I trust another person with 50% of it. I trust another person with the other 40% of it. I can actually break it down like that. I can even say, give 10% of it to a funeral home. Give it, you can make Golden Gate Funeral Home your beneficiary for a certain amount. So you know that that money will be paid towards your funeral. I don't have to trust anybody with that. I trust the funeral home with it. And I don't have to trust one person with all the money. I can break it down to different people. What's important? Well, what is important is that whoever you choose to give it to, make sure you can trust them and make sure they are of age, meaning they must be over the age of 18. If you give it to me before I'm the age of 18, of course, legally you can do that. But it's going to go into some type of trust. It's going to go into something that's going to protect me because I'm too young to make decisions. And you can set up in your will, you can set up with an attorney when I should receive it. You say, well, listen, I have a 15-year-old child. I want them to receive $100,000 when they turn 25 or when they turn a certain age. And you can set that up. If you don't set that up, we're going to have chaos and we're going to have confusion. The third thing we talk about is that last will and testament. 3 things that you need to know about that is that who you owe, please write it down. Everybody you owe. What you own, write that down. And whoever and whatever you are responsible for, write that down. And decide who's going to take on that responsibility. Who's going to take on the bills that I owe? Give it to that person. Who's going to take on the things I own? Who do I want to give it to? Give it to that person. And who's going to take on the responsibility of my children, my father, my anyone or anything else that I'm responsible, my business? Who's going to take on that? Write that down. And then we talk about a living will. Why is a living will so important? A living will is so important because you never know what's going to happen in life. And I want to determine what happens to me when I can't speak for myself. I want to determine if I go to a rest home. I want to decide if I have to go to some type of living facility. I want to decide if I need to stay at home with caretakers. I need to decide that. I don't want my family to be put in that position. And I'm going to make sure I have a disability insurance policy in place to pay for whatever my wishes are. You heard me talk about earlier, any type of bank account you have, make sure you put a payable on death or what we call a beneficiary. So when your loved one passes away, you're not struggling with the family. You're not struggling with the bank. You're not struggling with anyone. You're just walking there with a death certificate and say, my name is on that account. My loved one left that to me. I'll walk out with it. Now, who's going to be in charge of your funeral? Well, we talk about a right of disposition. How important is that? How many people can be in charge in one room? Just one. Who wears the pants? You need one person wearing the pants. Because most families, I'll say 90% of them, do they agree? Do they fight? 90% of people don't fight. 90% of people come in here and everything is fine. But 1 out of 10, y'all, it's an issue. We're saying make sure that doesn't happen with your family. We straighten that out with a right of disposition. It is free of charge. And then the last thing, and this is very important. I don't hit it as hard as I probably should, that letter of last instructions. And I'm not going to name a million things today. I'm going to say, what is the password to your computer? How do I get inside your laptop to find out all these things? Because you know you keep everything on your laptop. What is the password to your cell phone? Because how do I get in touch with everybody? You know, we do all our business. And everything is done now either through computers or our cell phone, but they're all protected by a password. It is very important that we know how to get into your things. So when we talk about that letter of last instructions, I just want to stay there for a minute. Make sure you give someone the password to your computers. Make sure someone has a password to your cell phone. And anything that you have locked up, we need either a key or we need the combination. I would not know about your bank account if you don't tell me. I would not know about the safe deposit box or this extra accounts you have. You must tell somebody. Somebody needs to be able to step up and go to your family and say, this is what we have. This is how you get to it. You have to trust somebody with that. Don't keep that secret for yourself. How much time we got, producer? There we go. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Black history. Mr. Becker, what's our words of encouragement today? But I hope you got those 7 steps. I know how important they are. So let's talk a little bit about that history of African Americans, especially in the funeral services. I tell you all month, that's what we're talking about. I'm just going to hit 3 things right now. And the first one is this, is that we go way back. When it comes to funeral services, African Americans, we go back. We go back to Egypt. Yeah, we were the first people. As far as they can go back, it's going to go back to Africa. The oldest human remains they have found, y'all, I'm in Africa. Y'all, Egyptians in the you've heard of the pyramids. Y'all, these are Africans. These are people that look like us. That was dark skinned. That were brown skinned, and this is where our heritage came from. They have always had funeral services. They have always prepared the deceased person. They always have. This is an African thing. And now that we're African Americans, we have that history. When we talk about Black History Month, if there's nothing else we can brag about, what we can brag about is when it comes to preparing dead people, it was the Africans that invented that. Embalming was invented, and not even a white person will argue with you that embalming came from Egypt. I went to mortuary college back in 1985. My white teacher taught me that the Egyptians taught us how to embalm. It's just what they can't deny it. So we have that rich heritage. It was the Egyptians who taught us to put our loved ones' physical body away according to the way they lived. It was Egyptians say build pyramids, build sarcophagus, build things of gold, protect the body, preserve the body. So we're thinking about Black History Month. The first thing we have to say, it was Black folks. I call them Black because they're African, and it was our history that is the reason why you see these elaborate funerals and these elaborate caskets and these elaborate things that we do at funeral services. That all came from Egypt. So I want to be sure and put that nugget out there today, is that it came from ancient Egypt. Black people, we should be proud. If no one should put their loved ones away, we should, because we always have. I told y'all it was 3 parts of this. The first part is be proud of your Egyptian heritage when it comes to funeral services. The second part, and I'm going to stay here for a second, is slavery. You say, what does slavery have to do with? You remember they took us from Africa and they brought us here. We didn't come on a cruise ship. Now, they treat us pretty bad, and they took us away from our heritage. And this is what they told us. This is just a little Black history fact. This is what they told us, is that you cannot gather together. What do you mean you can't gather together? Since the beginning of time, we've always had funeral services for our loved ones. We've always embalmed our loved ones. We've always prepared our loved ones. We always buried them according to the way they live. And now, all of a sudden, you're saying we can't do that. You say, well, why wouldn't they let them bury their loved one? Why wouldn't they let Black people gather together? They thought every time a Black person got together, a group of Black people got together that were slaves, they was thinking about running away. Or they was thinking about getting out of this situation, maybe go kill massa. So gatherings was illegal. So for many years during slavery, that Blacks were not allowed to properly bury their loved ones. Well, how deep is that? Because now we're no longer there. Of course, surely, when they stopped us from doing that, should make us want to do it even more so now. So you said, wait a minute. Now, I can remember reading some things. I can remember seeing some things that Blacks did have funerals. They did. As soon as Christianity was introduced, I would say, and then some of the white slave masters and owners said, okay, now we're going to go ahead and let them bury their dead. We're going to go ahead and let them have some type of church service. You may remember watching some of the documentaries where the traveling preacher was allowed to go to different plantations. And as long as he preached what the white folks told him to preach, he was allowed the blacks were allowed to come together and have church services. Then they was also allowed at some point to have funeral services for their loved ones as well. Well, this is where we get this saying, and you're going to see this all the time on programs. You're going to hear this all the time. Black History Moment, homegoing celebrations. That came from slavery. He said, what do you mean homegoing celebrations came from slavery? Not from white folks. They did not invent homegoing celebrations. We did. We invented that because we were in slavery. Death was better than life. So when you see somebody celebrating at a funeral, that came from slavery. They celebrated that person no longer had to be a slave. That person no longer had to be tortured. That person is now going on to something better. So you hear that at a funeral, don't think them other folks made that up. That came from us. The reason why the slaves were dancing when their mother passed away, or when their father passed away, or when they child, the reason they were shouting, the reason they were celebrating is not because they saw the white folks doing it. No, they were actually saying that person is free. Praise the Lord, I'm free. And the ultimate freedom, because the slaves believed as Africans, at this point, African Americans, we knew that there was two different things. There was a physical body that was being enslaved, but also there was a spiritual body that's now going on to its reward. And that's what you hear at funerals now. That's what you hear the preacher get up and say. That's what you hear doing funeral remarks. So how important is it that we celebrate the death of our loved ones? You'll hear us quote the Bible saying you should cry when the baby comes in, and you should celebrate when the person goes out. Y'all, if that's not something that came straight out of slavery, of course I'm celebrating when I'm going out, because life is terrible. And now this terrible life is over. No more pain, no more suffering. You'll hear that now. But can you imagine the pain and suffering our ancestors did during slavery? So, of course, that's a good Black History Month situation that we had to bring up. The reason why you see homegoing celebration, the reason why you see preachers get up or people get up and say they're better off now because they no longer have to deal with the worries of this world, it's because of what happened with us with slavery. And it's important, the reason we were allowed to do it is because of the introduction of Christianity. Because when Christianity came in, a lot of people say, well, how can black people be Christians? Or they, like Jesus is white or something. You know, I don't know what history book you read that Jesus, the region he was born in, the region he grew up in, was not white. If you had to go back and talk about skin color or what determined us to be black or white, I would think Jesus would definitely fall under the black category. So we think about it was Christianity that brings on the religious services, as well as let the African descendants, slaveries, were able to do funerals. It was interesting because the white folks were shocked. It was like they burying their mama, they burying their daddy, and they over there jumping up and down. It's interesting. I went to a class yesterday. It was a white teacher, and she says it was a cultural diversity class. So she's trying to teach us about as police officers how to be better when it comes to cultural diversity. And she said one of the things she did with her kids is take them to a black church. And we laughed about it. She was saying, you know, we're Catholic, so all we do is get up and down. We raise up, we raise back down. We pretty much repeat what the preacher say back to us. She said, but I took my white kids to a black church. And he said, they didn't sleep. And they said, Mama, you won't believe what they doing in there. Everybody screaming, everybody hollering, everybody jumping up and down. That's because we celebrate. We celebrate, and we do the same thing because death is a liberation for us, not something that we should be sad about. Now, it's interesting. I tell you, it was three parts of this. I talked to you about the Egyptian and the history of that, how proud we should be as African Americans. Then I spoke to you about slavery and how homegoing celebrations and why that was so important that we do celebrate the death of our loved ones. But then there's a third part called integration. And I have to hit this, and I have to hit this hard. When I tell you, y'all, listen, funeral business is, especially African Americans, is one of the oldest businesses that's owned by African Americans. We pass down our funeral homes for generations. You say, wait a minute, the Undertaker looks like he's doing pretty well. Yes, the Undertaker did very well, especially the Black Undertaker, especially doing integration. You say, well, why did that Black Undertaker do so well? It's because white folks wouldn't take your body. What do you mean they wouldn't take? I know y'all running over there to the white folks now. I know your friends are running over there. Maybe not you, but yeah, you can't wait to run to a white funeral home now. But it was a time they would not take you. Through the integration, you couldn't drink out the same water fountain, and your loved one couldn't lay on the same embalming table. Yeah, you still ain't got it. Yeah, you couldn't eat in the same restaurant, and your loved one couldn't be in the same room alpha viewing either. The white ambulance would pass right by your dying black self, and the white Undertaker would leave your dead body right where it is because you couldn't get in a white man's hearse. That's where integration was good for the black businesses, is because it made black folks stop selling us out to the white people because the white folks wouldn't take your money. Even though we go out our way to give it to them now, they wouldn't take it. They would not bury your loved one. They would not let your loved one in their funeral home. And even I own a funeral home to this day in Tallulah, Louisiana, Golden Gate, Beckwith Golden Gate Funeral Home, and we're still separate but equal. If you die on the freeway right now in Madison Parish, the sheriff department, the state troopers must look at your race first to decide which funeral home come pick you up off the side of the road. It's not just a funeral home on call that day. There's a black funeral home on call, and there's a white funeral home on call in 2021. If you die on the side of the road and you light skin on me, I can just imagine how confused they are which funeral home to call. But if you dark skinned, they know exactly to call Beckwith Golden Gate Funeral Home. And if you white with blonde hair, they know exactly which white funeral home to call. Even to this day, the white funeral homes still don't pick up black people in Tallulah, Louisiana. Take your black self over to the white funeral home and see if they'll handle your mama's funeral. They won't do it. So I hope that was a little black history today. It is still our reality. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud that Golden Gate Funeral Home is African-American family owned and operated. And we're going to continue this conversation. I don't know about you. I'm looking forward to it. See how excited I get when I start talking about black folks. So it's going to be Saturday from 10:15 all the way to 11 o'clock a.m. You're going to get 45 minutes on KGGR and on Facebook and on YouTube and on Instagram. We're going to talk about African Americans. We're going to talk about black history. We're going to talk about what they did and what they didn't allow us to do, and the major role that African American funeral homes played in the civil rights movement. Remember, we're right here every Tuesday. I'm sorry, now it's Monday. It changed. From 8:15 to 8:30, and then every Thursday from 8:15 to 8:30, and every Saturday from 10:15 to 11 o'clock a.m. May God bless you, and may God keep you, is our prayer.